Good morning. Good morning. I'm Dr. Petro. Welcome to the Science Mind class here at CSLDallas, where it is cool and rainy. But we're going to actually have spring later today and this week, and so I'm pretty excited about that. So we are in our introductory chapter, What It Does, and we are looking at the section Principle Restated on page 46. And so these next two paragraphs, I think, help set up our process of manifestation. So we've spent a lot of time in the last few chapters talking about who we are, the nature of reality, what we think about the one infinite reality. And so we're starting to move into this idea that we are co-creators and that we have the ability to manifest and that we can actually participate in that manifestation process. So this is the second full paragraph in the Principle Restated. The one who wishes to demonstrate some particular good must become conscious of this particular good if they wish to experience it. Okay, this could be one of the more profound statements around manifestation. We have to become conscious of the particular good. So how we keep ourselves from being conscious of a particular good is to say, well, that'll never happen for me. Or, well, that's not really possible. Or, I can't imagine how that's possible. Or actually just not having a large enough concept about our lives and what's possible in our lives and the kind of life that we might want to have or experience. It goes on to say, therefore, we must make our mind receptive to it, meaning this particular good, and we must do this consciously. We must make ourselves receptive to this particular good. And to be receptive to a particular good is to actually be able to imagine that we might even have the life that would be having that or doing that or being that, right? And this doesn't mean just manifesting a thing, like a specific thing. This means manifesting the kind of life experience that we want to experience, the kind of creativity and life that we want to express, as well as our spiritual experience of the truth of who we are and the nature of reality. All of that is included. So for instance, if we want to demonstrate a particular good, let's say we want to demonstrate our experience of oneness, that we are in fact part of the infinite reality. And yet, we are conscious only of our separation. Well, I don't feel one. Well, I always feel like, just doesn't work for me. I see those other people having those experiences, but I don't have those experiences. I just feel like it's way beyond me. I'm not enlightened enough. I'm not spiritual enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. And so we are not inviting ourselves to become conscious of the particular good of oneness, of the experience of oneness. So how do we become conscious of a particular good that we are not yet experiencing? There's lots of ways to do that, but this is an incredibly critical question. How do we become conscious of a particular good that we are not yet experiencing? Well, there are so many techniques that are taught in spirituality and manifestation. Vision board. You put up a vision board with pictures that help you kind of imagine, wow, what would it be like if I were that healthy, if I traveled that much, if I felt that kind of experience that these words or images evoke in me, right? We read spiritually inspiring pieces of writing. So we might read the mystics from the East, from the West. You might read Rumi. You might read Meister Eckhart. We might read Julian of Norwich. We might then, we read Abraham Hicks, or we read Ernest Holmes, right? And we allow this to expand the possibility. Gosh, if this person has experienced it, why am I the great exception? Because what we're constantly confronted with is that so often we hold ourselves as not that. Well, I'm not that. Well, I'm not that peaceful. Well, I'm not that connected. Well, I'm not that aware or enlightened or whatever. And do you see, the moment we do that, we are no longer conscious of the particular good. What we're conscious of is the not having it. or the not being it. And so, this is why we read and we study and we listen to other people's inspiration, right? When somebody has a TSRW and says, wow, I really had this, I worked on this and I worked on this and I had this amazing experience and I went on this retreat and all of a sudden something shifted within me, right? And so oftentimes we say, well, I'm not them. Look at all the great work they're doing. And we forget, right, that if one person can do it, all of us can do it. If one person can have that experience, anybody can have that experience. And so we want to find ways to become conscious of the particular good. And then we can look even into our own lives and say, well, there was a moment of deep peace. There was a moment of oneness. There was a moment when I was able to forgive even though I was angry. There was a moment where I felt really prosperous. There was a moment I was able to travel when I wasn't sure how. Do you see what I'm saying? We find things in our own lives. And if we can have it in a moment, well, then we can have it in more moments. Then we can have it in this experience. We can transfer that and say, well, look, that particular good, I become conscious of the particular good, and I continue to expand my ability to be conscious about it. And then make our mind receptive to it and do it consciously. What does that mean? That it means we confront every time we say, yeah, but. That's what it means to do it consciously. Yeah, but you don't know about my past. Yeah, but you don't know what stands in my way. Yeah, but you don't know that I don't have a degree. Yeah, but you don't blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. And every time that yeah, but comes up, we are not being receptive to our good. We're not being receptive to the particular good that we are working with in our own consciousness. And so we must consciously then begin to negate the yeah, but. We must begin to become conscious of the particular good we wish to experience, right? So, yeah, but I don't have that. Yeah, but I can't have that, right? Then you need, to me, I started tacking on another yeah, but. Yeah, but if they can do it, so can I. Yeah, but if I can read about it in the mystics, that must mean I can have that experience. Yeah, but I had that moment when I was hiking in the woods and I had such a deep experience of oneness. Surely I can have that again, right? So it's what's like a double negative? So, maybe that won't work for you. Maybe there's another way you can do it, like you're more affirming or however. What doesn't really matter, the technique. But the outcome, the point is to become conscious of the particular good and then invite ourselves to become receptive to it. And then to notice all the ways that we shut it down, right? Because that shows us where the work is. That shows us where our intellectual work is. That shows us where our emotional work is. That shows us where our spiritual work is. All the places and ways in which we are not being conscious of our good, not being receptive to that particular consciousness, and not deliberately engaging with this expansion of consciousness, right? Because that's what we're doing. We're trying to expand into the experience and the reality of what is already so. That's what we've been covering in all of this that has taken us, what? Let's see, we started in September. That has taken us these many months, right? Is we've been patiently and carefully building up an understanding so that we can be conscious of the particular good that is always already available. And so that we can begin to do the deliberate and conscious work to be receptive to this good. And it's not just receiving my good from the outside, it's also being receptive within my own consciousness. I mean, when I first got into the science of mind, I promise you, it was much easier to see the good for other people, and it was much easier to say, yeah, but you don't know how broken I am. You don't know all the things that are wrong with me. You don't know all the reasons why that's never going to happen for me. And each time, right, shutting it down, shutting it down, shutting it down, shutting it down. Not engaging in the conscious becoming conscious of the particular good and making our mind receptive to it, right? I mean, these are the key ideas, and that work is all here. It's all here, right? And we, and then what's the I don't remember who it is that is the show me state, right? Missouri. There you go, the show me state. We want to say, well, I'll believe it when I see it, right? And we're raised that way in many cases. I'll believe it when I see it. Usually with a great deal of cynicism and skepticism. And of course, this is putting that on its head. I'll see it when I believe it. And not like believe it like in some religious way, I'm going to believe in it. Believe it because I have come to accept that it's the reality of the truth of my being, of the nature of the universe, of how life works, and I'm expanding myself into that particular good. So yeah, I know a lot of people use a lot of different analogies to help get a hold of this. I have two in particular that feel the most concrete to me. It doesn't mean that you have to always work on things or stuff or this kind of, but for me it's twofold. The first one was when I realized that I spent my whole life believing that I was poison in relationships, that I was constantly ruining them, and that any relationship I was going to be in was eventually going to curl up into a little crispy ball and blow away, and it was going to all be my fault. And so I was really clear about that, right? And I remember getting into the science of mind, starting working on it, and having, continuing to have relationships that really didn't work. And I decided that I would begin working on a healthy relationship, that I was going to be somebody who was in a healthy relationship. The problem was I didn't know what a healthy relationship was. I didn't see it in my family. I didn't see it growing up. I didn't see it. So I realized that I had used movies and television and books. And it's like, wait, somebody's writing that, so it's always perfect. Or they always resolve it in 30 minutes, right? Disney movies. And, 30 minutes minus the commercials, all issues are taken care of. Or soap operas. Well, that's just the way life is. There's just one, debacle after another. And so I realized that I had no idea what a healthy relationship actually looked like or felt like. So I had to become aware of that particular good. What does a healthy relationship, what might that be like? And so I did exactly what I said. I started reading about from a spiritual point of view, relationships. I started noticing what looked to me like healthy relationships. I started thinking about how might I behave if I were in a healthy relationship. Do you see, I'm trying to become conscious of this particular good. I'm trying to, and I stopped being about, I want the relationship that I'm in and the person that I'm with to get better. right? If you would just do what I think needs to be done, then I'll be better. I stopped focusing on the other person and really focused on growing my consciousness about a healthy relationship, which also meant I stopped being afraid of conflict. I didn't need it always to be lovely and nice. I had to learn how to speak my truth. I had all kinds of things I had to learn. I was becoming conscious of that particular good. And then beginning to accept, I'll never forget the day I said to myself, you know, I'm a pretty good catch. I had never felt that way before, ever. I always thought somebody was doing me a favor to be in relationship with me, right? What an amazing thing. You know, I'm a pretty good catch. And do you see, now I'm receptive to that good. I've become receptive to that good. Okay, that didn't happen overnight. I don't want to affirm that it needs to take as long for anybody else as it took for me, but do you see? All of that was the mental and spiritual work of becoming conscious of a particular good and then accepting that particular good. And this is true whether it's relationship, finances, health, spirituality, our experience of the truth of who we are. It works exactly the same way in each one of these, in every area of our life. Creativity, I mean, you name it. This is what we're working to do. Now, many spiritual practices are designed to help you do some part of this process, right? The vision board helps you imagine it, look at it. Journaling might help you work through all your yeah buts. Meditation, right? It helps us expand into the infinite and have an experience that, maybe we're more than just our background and just the experience, right? Every spiritual practice adds to this process of becoming conscious of the particular good, becoming receptive to it, and accepting that it is always already present. And so this is where we talk about spiritual mind treatment. Spiritual mind treatment is the technology that science of mind uses to do this process. And it seems to be a spiritual technology that actually embraces all aspects of the process, which is one of the reasons why I love it so much. It isn't just working on one of the pieces, right? And so we're going to spend some time over the next few weeks really talking about the beginning understanding of this thing called spiritual mind treatment. But in this paragraph, there's no hocus pocus in a mental treatment. It is always definite, conscious, concrete, and explicit. Because we have to do the work. We have to become that in our consciousness. And then, of course, we're talking about a law that simply says, well, of course. All right, there's nothing mysterious about this. There's no hocus pocus. You don't have to be initiated into some level of awareness. You are already spirit making itself manifest. Right? And so what we're doing is becoming conscious of the ways it works. We're becoming conscious of the universal laws, and we begin to discover and use them. And really, truthfully, the only work that we have to do is to become big enough on the inside. Big enough on the inside, the spiritual truth of who we are. Not arrogant, not prideful, but big enough that we know the truth. Because, of course, if we know the truth about ourselves, all we have to do is look at somebody else and go, oh, but that's true for you too. It's not just only true for me, right? That's what keeps us from becoming arrogant and prideful. All right, so we're going to stop here and, let's talk about, on the one hand, what's difficult about this for you? What stands in the way of you consciously engaging in focusing on a particular good and growing your awareness and your receptivity to it? Or maybe you have a story when it's really worked for you, when you've really been able to do that. So we're going to stop and say good morning to Ryan and to Richard and to everybody out there online.
Well, good morning to everybody here in the room. Hi, I'm Ryan, and to everybody joining us here online via Zoom and on Facebook throughout the entire globe. we want to say thank you for joining us today. And so as Dr. Petra mentioned, this is an engaging experience, so we encourage you guys to speak up here in the room, ask your questions or your comments. The same goes true for those who are here on Zoom with us and on Facebook Live. And the way that you can do that online is by hitting the raise your hand icon, and the way you can do that on Facebook is in the chat. I feel like I've said this so many times. I'm skipping out a bunch of stuff. Because most of the folks here in the room, what do you got to do? There you go. We've got them well trained here in the room. And I always want to mention our iconic Richard, who's behind the video camera here today. And I know I'm sitting a little funky from the usual way that I'm sitting here, so I'm leaning to the side for the folks who can't see me online. I promise I'm not drunk today. So I do have the microphone here, and I'll be helping to pass it out along with Richard, and then that way we can get your questions here in the room, and I'll help to field them all. And I always like to remind folks, too, that are online, if you put your question and comment inside of the chat, I do keep those anonymous, so that way we can continue to have a safe container for spiritual growth. So we have a comment here in the room.
Actually, it's over here.
All right.
Good morning, it's Nicole. My struggle, one of the things that I've become really good at is learning to say, yeah, but that doesn't spark joy in me. And I'm receptive to people's suggestions, but I try not anymore to say, yeah, but I don't have the energy for that, or yeah, but I don't have the time. I really do have the energy. I really do have the time. We do what we want to do. And if I'm not doing it, it's simply that it doesn't spark joy in me. And it's been this journey of learning how to say that, because society has this big problem with me. And the problem is that I refuse to let it tell me I'm not doing enough. I always have. I decide whether I'm doing enough, and yeah, your input is being considered, but just because you tell me that it needs to be a certain way doesn't mean I'm going to scramble to make it a certain way and please you. There's this thing of even sitting down, doing nothing. I'm not doing nothing. It's my job to see the good in it, and I've gotten pretty good at that. What I'm struggling with is seeing the good in what other people do, and letting other people sit down and not be accountable to explaining the good in their sitting down, or even to say, like, oh, well, you need to be more interesting for me. You need to paint more. You need to travel more. You need to dress more interestingly. Well, like, yeah, but I'm doing what makes me happy, and it's not going to solve anything. If I'm depressed at home and you say, well, there's this popular internet meme, well, you just need to travel more, and the meme goes, oh, great, well, now I'm depressed in Egypt. And it's because people are not seeing the good in what they're doing. They think that they have to meet other people's expectations of good. They're not meeting their own expectations of good. But even like sitting here, I was typing this on my phone with this insecurity of, oh God, people are going to think that I'm texting on my phone and not paying attention. I'm absolutely paying attention. I'm taking notes. I'm doing it on my phone. Why aren't you looking for the good in me? Why are you looking at me and automatically thinking that I'm doing something bad? And why am I looking at you and thinking that you're thinking I'm doing something bad? Why am I not seeing the good in you right now? So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's great, Nicole. It's, and it's lovely to share so openly. I really appreciate it. And of course, the challenge is this is the good news, bad news of the infinite reality, and that is that life is mirroring back to you what you're putting out to life. Right? So the moment that you really can, in fact, see the good in someone and see that when they make a suggestion that they're simply loving and helping you, or noticing that memes on Facebook might not be the best possible place to get guidance on life, right? Then when you can do that and you can see that in others, I promise you, you will A, attract more of that back, and B, when you don't, it won't matter as much, right? Because what we put out to others is what we get reflected back to us. And so and then of course it's the double-edged sword. I want to be free to be who I am, so you should be free exactly in the same way I am.
So hard to let people do that.
Right, right. And so I would suggest that we stop affirming that it's hard, because the truth is there's that within you that can actually see the truth in others. And the more that we can do that, the more open we'll become to letting them be who they are, right? And you're asking for a really high tolerance for your difference. So the question is, are you giving that back to others? You're not, right? And that's a really honest statement. And there's the work. Right there. Not to keep insisting on my difference, but to actually honor other people's difference and let them be somebody who says, well, you should be more structured. Well, you should do this. And you should. For the most part, it actually is out of love and care. And when I recognize that, I'm not as resistant to it. I just can say, oh, thanks for sharing. I really get that you love me. Right? And just let it be that, and receive the love that is being portrayed, even if it comes across judgmentally. People don't know how to love without judgment. We weren't taught how to love without judgment, right? I remember my dad my sister and I had this conversation. Every time he wanted to love us, there was something about money, but there were always strings attached. And so my sister refused the money. It took me a long time to realize, that's how my dad loves me. So I managed the way in which I could manage his strings, his expectations. But I recognized that that's just the way that he knew how to love me. And so we have to give to others the very thing we want for ourselves, which is a high tolerance for our uniqueness, for our differences, and to really be able to work there is a really powerful place. Because then we stop saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, I'm going to be my own person. When we can give that to someone else, it's much easier for us to be our own person. We don't have to fight so hard for it. And you have spoken for a lot of people in the room. Not think you're only speaking for yourself, right? So thank you. Ryan.
All right. Did you want to go ahead and do a comment? And then we'll come to I see Connie online. We'll come to you next after.
Great.
That.
Hi, my name is Patrick, and I think what stands in my way is twofold. They're pretty much related. One is this feeling that what I want, I want too much, that I'm being greedy and selfish, and I should be happy with what I've got. And, and then especially, I see a lot of like conspicuous consumption going on. I'm like, I don't want to participate in that. And, so there's a lot of guilt and shame in, well, I want a nicer life and more money and, all this other stuff, but it's not just about that, but it's part of it. And then the fact, on the other hand, that I feel like I don't have anything to offer. Like, the work that I do is somehow always subpar, not good enough, and I'm afraid to share my work on, build a portfolio, etc., because I'm afraid people are going to judge me and tell me I'm not good enough, I'm not there yet, whatever. So I like to just kind of stay in my safe little place where, okay, I've got an IT job, I'm making okay money, but, I really want to be a data analyst and put out my, my work, but I'm, just afraid of what people are going to say or think, and even letting people see my resume terrifies me. So.
Thanks for sharing that, Patrick. Right? So what we have is a whole host of Gordian Knot that happens for us in our lives, right? And it feels like it's both in my money and my work and my this and my that. And so two things I would say about that. First of all, pick one thing that you're going to work on. Pick one thing. Because what happens is the underlying beliefs that are the false ideas that we have about ourselves or about life, those false beliefs are in fact it's like an octopus, and they have their tentacles in every area. So if we will pick one area and start really working on what's the particular good we want to become conscious of and start being receptive to it, we will shift underlying beliefs, and we'll see magically that other areas of our life actually become more effortless because the belief is playing out in all of those different areas. So that's the first thing I would say, because you talked about a number of things, right? The second thing is, I think that you are right on in the fact that having a larger life and having more is not just acquiring more money and stuff, right? Too often our prosperity consciousness gets conflated with rampant consumerism and the overconsumption of things. And so what we have to do is ask ourselves what we value. Why do we want more money? Why do we want a nicer house or a nicer car? Well, on the one hand, it would be nice to have a car that didn't break down every 5 minutes, right? Or that we didn't have, right? So there's some real reasons for having things that work, having things that reflect our belief about ourselves, but more importantly, having things that allow us to have the life that we want. So I downsized into a tiny little condo, which I love because it's very important to me to have a small footprint. It's very important to me to be conscious of my footprint in all the different ways in life. And the truth is, I'm not a big entertainer. I'm an introvert. I'd just as soon sit in my little house and read my book. And when I want to go traveling, all I have to do is close the door and lock it. Bye. Nobody has to take care of it. There's no yard to take care of, right? And so I value traveling, and I value the ease that it gives to me. Now, I had to rearrange my house for my granddaughter, and if something happens with my son, he has to come and sleep on a blow-up mattress because they don't have a guest room. For other people, having a large house in which they entertain and they have a big family and they want people to come visit, right? Do you see? It's not about that the house is big or small. It's about what we value and how what we have allows us to express and experience what we value and what's important to us. And so it's not about comparing, oh, everybody should have a big house, or quite frankly, everybody should have a small house. Right? It's about our own lives. And so that's where it's really important not to become stuck in the when I, then I game. When I have more money, then I'll be happy. No, you'll have more money when you're happy. Ooh, man, that's probably one of the hardest things. Actually, my son just shared with me, having this amazing experience of being around somebody who, it has a lot of money and does a lot of wealth management and is always worried about not having enough money. Because that's the focus, having more money, having more money, having more money. So there's never enough. Do you see? And so these are the things. But there's also the other side of that, right? We believe it's more spiritual to be poor, that we should be ashamed of having lives that work, which is just nonsense. You are here to express a happy, joyful life. You are here to add to the infinite experience of life unfolding. I do not think that the beautiful hyacinths that are right now blooming in my garden, I do not think that they say, oh, I shouldn't bloom too big. I shouldn't have too many pretty little parts to me. Then they just bloom. And most of them bloom big. And every once in a while, there's one that just blooms little. And it doesn't say, oh gosh, I'm just too little. It just blooms, right? And we have all this comparison stuff that we're doing. It's what we value. It's what's important to us. And so I spend a fair amount of time with my granddaughter, which means there are things in my own life I'd like to do that I'm not doing. Choices, choices. Choices, choices. So I can go, oh, I can't do this and I can't do this because I promised I would take care of my granddaughter and it's imposing on me. Well, if I feel that way, I should stop saying yes to her. Right? But I value family pretty much as much and more than I value anything else. And family will always come first for me. And so I'm choosing to set aside some of the things that I'd actually like to do because I have a granddaughter who needs my time. That's choices, choices, choices. It's all about choices, right? And if we want more money and we want to have a better job and we want to do that, then we have to get over our insecurities. We can't just say, well, it's just not going to work because I'm so insecure. Okay, there's the work. So write a resume, send it to somebody, right? You have to then do the work to become receptive of your good. Simply saying it makes me uncomfortable, therefore I'm not going to do it, will keep you stuck right where we are. And so this receptivity for our good does in fact grow us into our discomfort. Why? Because we're growing out of our comfort zone of safety and security, and I like this and I know this and nobody will ever reject me. Well, it's true. Nobody will ever reject you if you stay in your house and close the door. You're right. And what kind of a life is that? How much of a life are you actually experiencing? If you're happy with it, fabulous. But if you're not happy with it, then that is the inner urge telling you there's more to do. So we have to become resilient. We have to become resilient. You will be rejected. You will have people who don't like you. Oh, I hated learning that. I remember an executive coach saying to me one time, you have to be okay that people don't like what you do, or they don't like the way that you do it. What? But I want everybody to like me. I'm such a lovable person. I'm so right? I want everybody to like me. But I don't like everybody. Is it okay to say that out loud? Of course it is. I can see the spiritual truth in someone and still say I don't want to go to lunch with them. Doesn't mean I have to, denigrate their personhood. And so, of course, not everybody's going to like us. Of course, not everybody's going to think that we're doing a good job or that we're going to be doing it right. Of course. And I say, bless you, please find some place that where you're happy. And I'm going to do the same. But we allow our fear and insecurity to hold us back. Nobody's doing that but us. So start imagining, Patrick, this particular good, that you have a worthwhile resume. You become conscious of this particular good, that you have a worthwhile resume, and that you become receptive to that there is somebody who is looking for a person like you with the resume that you have. It only takes one. It only takes one. Right? It only takes one buyer to buy your house. It only takes one buyer to buy your motorcycle. It only takes one. It only takes one person to say, wow, you're what I'm looking for. Or I'm willing to give a chance. I'm willing to give you a chance. Right? That's the work right there. And we say to our fear and our insecurity, thank you for sharing, and so what? So what? Because we have the entire infinite intelligence and love of the universe at our back, holding us up, lifting us up, moving us forward, making the crooked way straight in front of us. So thanks for sharing. And again, you're not speaking just for yourself. You're speaking for a lot of other people, right? That's where the work is. All right, we're going to get this last comment online.
Absolutely. Connie, would you like to go ahead and unmute yourself and join the conversation?
Yes, thank you.
Good morning, Connie.
Good morning, Reverend Peter. Back to the topic we were on at first, what I do when I want to say no to somebody is just say, that doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. And let's find something that works for both of us or all of us. And that is a spiritual project, I guess I could say, that I've been working on for a while with this wonderful, wonderful support of CSL. And I negotiate with other people what works for all.
Yes, beautiful.
And,
Thanks, Connie. Yeah, we get to say that. We just get to say, and you know that, and we can say it without rancor or without, you know, disdain. That, you know, I get that that would really work for you, but I'm not sure it works for me. But the other side of that coin is maybe we should try it. I remember as a kid, my mother my mother loved caviar. I thought it was the weirdest thing in the whole wide world. She loved caviar, and she'd make these little round crackers, and then there was a slice of egg, a little mayonnaise, a slice of egg, and then caviar on top. And for her, that was like the most special thing, right? So she would, like, once or twice a year, she would, for one, you know, for her birthday or for something really, really special. And well, I wasn't interested in it until I was a teenager, and then I thought, wow, my mother really loves these. I'm gonna try one. Oh my God, it's the worst thing I've ever eaten in my life. And I went, I really wanted to like it. And I said, well, so over the course of 5 years, I was like, well, this is supposed to be something really fabulous. I'm gonna keep trying it. And each time I tried it, I was like, I do not like this. I just don't like it. And so I finally said, this is not for me. It's not for me. And I was able to then say to my mom, you don't have to make any more for me. Thank you very much. You can, I promise you, I won't eat any. Right? It's okay. It doesn't work for me. But I at least tried it. Because I've had other things that I've tried and then have gone, oh my gosh. I remember when we ziplined in Costa Rica. And there were there were 20 of us, and it was a 7 zip line. Each zip line longer than the last, actually has the longest zip line over the highest gorge in the world, at least at that time. And some of us were not young. And so, and yet everybody was like, I'm gonna do it. And then we got to the first zip line, and some of the women especially were like, oh my God. But they had so beautifully, each one was a little longer, right? And those people who were comfortable doing it, none of them got on the zip line until they had supported the ones that were afraid. A couple people went first to show them that they weren't gonna die. And then, right, we were like, you can do it, you can do it. And of course, the first couple of zip lines, some of us, we did it with our eyes closed. Thank God there was somebody at the other end to catch us and stop us, right? But in doing it, and each one got a little longer, each one got and I remember this one woman, I remember that when I think she was probably on the 4th zip line, and she said, I'm gonna keep my eyes open this time. I'm missing everything. I'm missing it, because we were talking about, you know, the jungle and the things we were seeing and the view and the da-da-da-da. She said, and so she was bound and determined on that one. By God, she was gonna keep her eyes open. Of course, she screamed the whole way down because she had her eyes open. But she was like exhilarated, like she had conquered this barrier for herself. And by the time we got to the longest one, I mean, there was nobody that was holding back. By the time we got to that longest one, even though it was very long and it was a very high gorge, but there was this amazing view of the ocean, and not one person was gonna miss it. By God, they were gonna go down there, and everybody had their eyes open, and half of us were screaming bloody murder as we were going down. And it was the most amazing thing. And people were exhilarated afterwards because they had not allowed their fear to keep them from having this amazing experience. Was it frightening at the beginning? Yes, it was. Did they need encouragement? Of course. But as they saw other people do it, and they were like, I can do it, I can do it, you can do it, yes. You know, and we encouraged each other, and we made it very clear. And even the people at the zip line made it very clear. If you get in there and you say you cannot do it, it's okay. We'll put you in the Jeep and we'll drive you to the next pole and we'll keep you right with everybody. It was not like, oh, you're a baby if you can't do it, blah, blah. None of that. It was astonishing to experience the spiritual support of people allowing everybody to be exactly where they were, have exactly the experience, right? And some of them kind of hung there for a minute as they were like, oh, I don't know, but I'm, but they were bound and determined they weren't going to miss it. How much of our lives are we missing? Because we aren't pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zone. And that's what it means to express more life, right? To experience more life. And that's the more we're talking about, right? It's not just things. It's not just jobs. It's growing our own consciousness about who and what we are, who and what we can do, and what we're here to express and experience. So, all right, so next week we're going to start diving into spiritual mind treatment, talk about how this really helps us in this process and how we can use it to do these very things. Become conscious of a good, bend our mind around it, and grow our receptivity to that good. So join us at the celebration. Reverend Marquita Pierre McAllister is with us. She'll be singing something fabulous, and she and I are going to share the platform. We have all kinds of great things coming up, so please do check it out. And in the meantime, have a beautiful day. Bye for now.
Thank you.